Whoosh, whoosh! These bees won't leave me alone. They made me bake this super moist and soft honey cake. But I also added the secret ingredient. How to bake it? See in the video. I'm Violet. Let's cook with me. Half of the success of a delicious honey cake lies in incredibly moist and spongy layers. The base consists of 300 grams of butter, to which I add 180 grams of simple sugar and 4 tablespoons of honey. Here I have natural linden honey. There is no need to mix it because I will be heating the mass. Put the pan on a medium heat, and as the butter melts, begin to stir it little by little. When all the ingredients have dissolved, continue to heat it until small bubbles form on the surface, but do not bring it to a full boil. At this point, I add 2 teaspoons of baking soda and start stirring the mess intensively with a whip for about 1 minute without removing from the heat. The honey mixture will become fluffy, visually increase in size, and turn white. Then remove it from the heat, pour it into another bowl, and leave for literally 5 minutes to allow the mess to cool a little. This is necessary so that the eggs do not curdle in the hot mixture. Now I gradually add 4 eggs to the wet mess, pour them in and mix everything well with a whisk until smooth. All that's left is to add the flour. I need 400 grams of it, and simply sieve it through a fine sieve into the honey mess. That's it, don't add anything else. No baking powder is needed as I added baking soda. We don't need a hand mix of eating, not even use my favorite manual mode. I adore this recipe because the whole process is done with a simple whisk. The dough should be quite liquid, it's a good consistency with the rich amber color. The finished dough should be divided into 2 equal parts. To do this, I take 2 balls of the same size and divide the dough equally with a ladle. It smells so delicious that I couldn't resist and ate a teaspoon of it. Don't repeat after me. To bake the layers, I will take a metal baking sheet lined with parchment paper. The size of the baking sheet is 30 by 40 centimeters. Pour the first part of the dough into the parchment and use a silicone spatula to spread it around the perimeter of the shape. Make the layer as even as possible so that there are no bumps or voids after baking, as we will be assembling the cake. Bake the layers at 180 degrees for 7-9 minutes until brown color, no longer than that so that the layer doesn't burn. Since I only have one metal shape of this size, immediately after the first layer baking, I pour the second part of the dough onto it and spread it evenly in the same way. In total, I ended up with 2 medium thickness beautiful brown honey layers. They need to be cooled well before assembling. While the layers are cooling, let's make a simple syrup to lightly soak them with. Here in the pan, there are 8 tablespoons of sugar. Pour 250 grams of water over the sugar. Turn on a medium heat and stir until the sugar will completely dissolve in water. When the sugar has dissolved, bring the liquid to a gentle boil. It shouldn't bubble intensively. Then I remove the syrup from the heat and leave it to chill completely. Both the layers and syrup are cooling. During this time, we will prepare the cream. Here I have 250 grams of dulce de leche. You can use a caramel paste or thick caramel cream, which will also be a good substitute. First, the caramel paste needs to be whipped well with a hand mixer. I do this at a high speed for about 5 minutes. The second and the last ingredient in the cream will be 1 liter of thick sour cream. If your sour cream is not very thick, it is better to drain it in advance or add a thickener so that the cream doesn't run later. I add the sour cream to the caramel paste and beat them together with a mix into a fluffy and smooth creamy mess. It took me about 7 minutes. Everything is ready for assembling the cake, and now we begin with shaping the layers. To do this, I trim the edges of the layers on all 4 sides with a sharp knife in one clean line. Don't eat the trimmings, gather them aside on a plate because we will need them a little later, although they smell so delicious that it's very hard to resist. The edges have been trimmed, and now we need to cut 2 layers in half to make 4 identical layers. Now I'm gonna assemble the cake on a board so that it's easier to cut it later. Lay out the first layer and soak it with syrup. I poured the syrup into a spray bottle beforehand, but you can just use the brush for soaking. I find it easier to spray the layers, that's it. Then put a few spoonfuls of cream on top and spread it evenly over the surface. Everything is as usual, simple cake assembly according to the pattern. Cake layer, syrup, cream, cake layer again, syrup, cream, and so on until the whole cake is assembled. To give the cake a more varied taste, you can add rum flavoring to the cream or syrup, and then you will taste the light notes of rum in every piece. There are many recipes for honey cake, and over time I will show you all the variations I know, but this recipe is my family's favorite because of its unique honey caramel flavor. The cake is almost the same, but leave a small amount of cream for covering. That is, the entire cake, both the top and sides, should be covered with cream. I try to make it as smooth as possible, but it's not a problem because the crumbs will hide any unevenness. As I said, we will still need the layer trimmings, namely for sprinkling on the cake. First, they need to be ground in a blender to a fine crumb consistency. The fact that the crumbs are a little moist is even a big plus, as this will help them stick to the surface better. All that remains is to sprinkle the crumbs evenly over the entire cake. Both the top and sides should be completely covered with it. To allow the cake soak better, I recommend leaving it to rest overnight and eating in the next day. However, it is no less delicious when freshly baked. Bake it, taste it, and enjoy. That's all for today. More recipes next week. See you next time. Big hug, yours Violet.